How's it going, guys? We're going to be checking out the German invasion of the Netherlands, May 1940, courtesy of Eric. So, shout out to you for this priority suggestion. And this is something I'm actually curious about because I know Rotterdam is basically been rebuilt and it's more modernized because I guess the center of the city was kind of like blown to shit by the Germans during World War II. So so I've always been, a little bit curious on that part of it. I don't know. I'm assuming they're going to go ahead and cover the Rotterdam situation. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe that didn't happen in May of 1940. I'm not sure. But, anyways, this is from the original channel, History Hustle. So make sure you check out the link down below for the original video and hit like and subscribe on your way down. We're going to check this out. The German invasion of the Netherlands, May of 1940.
On the 10th of May 1940, the German army invaded the Netherlands, and 5 days later the Dutch command signed the unconditional surrender. Hitler had expected that the Netherlands would have been taken in just 1 day, so something went wrong. What? In this video I'm going to talk about the German invasion of the Netherlands, also known as the Battle of the Netherlands.
You said what went wrong? Well, maybe you underestimated the Dutch. I mean, maybe that's what went wrong.
Hey, welcome back, regular viewers. If you're new, welcome to History Hustle. I'm Stefan, history teacher, hustling history for you. If you like this content, please consider subscribing. Also hit the notification bell to join the hustle. Let's start.
He said he's hustling history for you. And I'm hustling reaction videos for you. Hit like, hit subscribe.
Like in the beginning of the First World War, the Dutch government took a position of neutrality. The Dutch High Command wasn't so sure about the fact that it would work this time as well. See, the original German plan of attack during the First World War, the Von Schlieffen plan, would include an invasion of the Netherlands. And one of the reasons the German army...
That's just a little bit of the Netherlands in the bottom, though, where Maastricht is. Yeah, because this is Belgium on the side, Germany on the right-hand side. You got right here, this is the Netherlands. Little tiny tippy, at the bottom, Maastricht. And then it opens up into the more wider area of the Netherlands up north.
Didn't invade the Netherlands later was because the war became a stalemate that dragged on for many years, so the German army needed its resources at the Western Front. In the 1930s, Dutch General Reinders wasn't so sure that the Netherlands would be lucky again if another war would break out. The problem was the Dutch army at that time had suffered severe budget cuts. It lacked professional staff, trained soldiers, and war material. General Reinders proposed some draconic plans to modernize the Dutch army with the purchase of artillery, anti-tank guns, anti-aircraft guns, airplanes, panzer wagons, and tanks. However, years of budget cuts made these plans hard to realize. On the 28th of August 1939, only a few days before the Second World War would break out, the Dutch army mobilized. General Reinders became the commander of land and sea forces. From the get-go, General Reinders got into arguing with other members of the Dutch High Command, as well the Dutch Minister of Defense, how to carry out a proper defense, because several lines needed to be reinforced. I'm talking about the IJssel line, the Grebbe line, and the New Holland Water line. On the 31st of January 1940, General Reinders resigned and was replaced by General Winkelmann. And General Winkelmann, with the limited resources he had, chose for the Grebbe line to become the main line of defense when the Germans would invade the Netherlands. The area in front of the Grebbe...
I don't get why, if this is a line of defense that's like down the middle of the country, though. I don't understand why it would be down the middle of the country. Because wouldn't the Germans be coming in from this side, right? Because this is the side of Germany. I mean, Belgium's on over here. So they didn't care about that part, or what? I'm confused on that, because that's like halfway down the country.
When the Germans would invade the Netherlands. The area in front of the Grebbe line was inundated, means flooded. The water would be too shallow to cross by boat, but too deep to cross by pencil wagon. So this would be an ideal defense. The problem was that the area of the Grebbeberg, berg means mountain in Dutch.
You know, I did see, I have not done a reaction on it yet, but I did see a video and some suggestions on some about the time that the Netherlands intentionally flooded some of their land. I bet that's what they're talking about. I'm going to have to check that out. I'm going to definitely have to check that video out.
Was that the area of the Grebbeberg, berg means mountain in Dutch, was higher ground. So this area could not be flooded. So if the Germans would carry out a land attack, the attack would come here on the Grebbeberg. On the evening of the 9th of May, one day before the Germans would launch their invasion, he left his office and he said to his colleagues, "Now they can come. We've done what we could. I'm going home to catch some hours of sleep." And only a few hours later, the first German troops would set foot on Dutch soil. Now the first troops that came into the Netherlands were German troops in Dutch uniforms. Yep, they wore Dutch uniforms and fabricated Dutch helmets.
Those dang tricksters, man. They're being tricksters.
Now their goal was to make it to the IJssel bridges and dismantle the bombs underneath them. In some cases, these patrols were intercepted by Dutch border guards. Other patrols made it through, only to see the bridges had been blown up in front of them. And in one occasion, the infiltration patrol was on the very bridge when it got blown up. Panzer trains that made it to the IJssel line couldn't carry on because the bridges were blown up. After some skirmishes, the Dutch retreated to the Grebbe line according to plan. In the south of the Netherlands, in the province of North Brabant, German panzer trains smashed through the Dutch lines. A Dutch major that was...
Okay, so North Brabant, that's right above Belgium. So was the Dutch occupying Belgium at the time, right? So they came in from the south. What is it? South? It's either south or southwest, right? I think Brabant says straight south. But of you know, the south part of the Netherlands. So they came in North Belgium into the South Netherlands. All right.
Brabant, German panzer trains smashed through the Dutch lines. A Dutch major that was stationed there couldn't believe his eyes because of A, the war had broken out, and B, the war was on his very spot. When the first German train rushed by, he looked weird and he asked his troops, "Does our army have these type of trains?" And he could not even finish his sentence before machine gun bullets flew around his ears and he had to take cover. Now this example shows that many Dutch soldiers weren't mentally prepared for war. The Germans pushed through. Meanwhile, on the Grebbeberg, the German onslaught was nigh. Till the very last moment, Dutch soldiers were preparing their defenses by cutting down trees, laying telephone cables and reinforcing their trenches. A Dutch sergeant wrote, "Together with a captain, I was cutting down trees. It was ludicrous that we still hadn't done that up to this point." On the 11th of May 1940, Germans attacked the Grebbeberg. Wehrmacht and SS units mopped up the frontal post, and the next day they took the front line. Now, one incident that proves how chaotic the communication at the side of the defenders was the action of Major Giacometti. He was a Dutch major that was stationed on the stop line, the last resort of defense, most likely here in this trench.
Yeah, I was going to say this trench, he's been doing the video at the whole time. That's an original trench then, I'm assuming, from World War II. That's, what, 80 years old and going on? Something like that? That's pretty interesting. It really is. So I don't know if the wood is original or if it's been replaced or whatever over the years for tourism. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
And he thought that only a very few Germans had taken the front line. So he proposed a counter-attack. He drew his sword and stormed forward. And according to his men, he said, "Long live the Queen, death to the Huns." His attack first came under fire by his fellow troops who weren't aware that a counterattack was going on. And second, the Germans, who were in much greater numbers than Major Giacometti had anticipated, drove the attackers back. Major Giacometti was killed in action. Now the front line had fallen, and there was one last resort, the stop line. Dutch High Command knew that a proper counterattack had to be undertaken. Keep watching to find out what happened. So let's take a look at the German attack from the air. This happened in two ways. First, there were the German paratroopers, the so-called Fallschirmjäger, soldiers that jumped from an airplane, opened up their parachute, landed on the ground, gathered up their ammunition to carry out their mission.
Red Dawn style. You've seen Red Dawn. If you haven't seen Red Dawn, there's two of them. There's one from the 70s, I think, 80s, something like that. And then there's a remake from a few years back. Both are good. Watch one, watch both. You should. It's good.
The second way were the so-called air landing troops. That were German troops that were basically positioned in a plane. The plane landed in the Netherlands, for example, on an airstrip. They hopped out to carry out their mission, and then ideally the plane would take off, fly back to Germany to get another batch of soldiers. Now the German plan was to seize the bridges near Dordrecht and in Rotterdam to make sure the German panzer units that came rushing from the south of the Netherlands could make their way to the heart of the Netherlands. Now the most ambitious plan was to be carried out by air landing troops at The Hague. There, German units had to march to the governmental city and capture the Queen, the Dutch Army High Command, and the Dutch government, a checkmate as it were. Now not everything went according to plan. In Dordrecht, the German troops managed to seize the bridges, mostly due to the fact that the Dutch soldiers were taken by total surprise. However, the Germans did suffer some severe losses. Now in Rotterdam, German troops managed to control the bridges only to be pinned down by Dutch soldiers and Marines. Around The Hague, the situation was...
When did they blow Rotterdam up then? They controlled the bridges only to get pinned down by Dutch soldiers. Okay, but I know they maybe that's what pissed them off. Maybe they came in and blew it up afterwards. I don't know.
Soldiers and Marines. Around The Hague, the situation was utterly chaotic. There, German troops landed at the airstrip of Ypenburg. Dutch soldiers, however, taken by total surprise, rushed to their machine guns and started firing on the German airplanes that had landed on their strip. Soon, the whole airstrip was filled by burning wreckages, and as a result of this, the next batch of airplanes, they couldn't land because the whole airstrip was filled by burning wreckages, so they had to land in nearby grass fields. Result of this, they couldn't get back up again, and also the attackers were totally scattered. Now eventually the attackers managed to occupy Ypenburg only to be driven out by a counterattack of the defenders. And this also happened on the other airstrips of Ockenburg and Valkenburg. The Dutch managed to capture 1,000 German army personnel, and the remaining German units fled, led by General von Sponeck. Only not in the direction of The Hague, because this direction was blocked by Dutch troops. So the ambitious move to capture the Queen, the government and the Army High Command had failed completely. Meanwhile, the fight on the Grebbeberg
completely failed. Did not work. They sucked at it, evidently.
Continued. The first and the second line had been taken by the enemy, and the third line, the stop line, was under heavy attack. Dutch High Command ordered a counter-attack. However, this attack was doomed.
You gotta attack them back. Duh.
From the start. First of all, there was a lack of men, and the men that were available were fairly old, in their 30s, not the best men to perform.
Hey now, I'm in my 30s, I'm 35. What is this? Hey, I'll be a soldier.
And the men that were available were fairly old, in their 30s, not the best men to perform a counterattack. These men hadn't slept or eaten properly for days. Proper maps of the terrain were not available, and aerial support was minimal. Reluctantly, the Dutch defenders performed the counterattack, and they ran into SS troops. After some fighting, they retreated, and because of SS troops, defenders performed the counterattack, and they ran into SS troops. After some fighting, they retreated. And because of panic, this retreat became a rout. The German attackers mopped up the final defenses on the Grebbeberg, and the Dutch High Command decided the following day that they would retreat through the third line. I'm talking about the New Holland waterline.
Yeah.
However, this line was barely prepared for any defense. Now, however successful, the Germans were behind schedule. In the north, the Germans were not able to break through. I get to that in a second. Also, the battle on the Grebbeberg caused some severe delay to the German advance, and in Rotterdam, the fighting had been going on for days now. The German troops were pinned down. The resistance needed to be broken. Dutch Army commander of Rotterdam, Colonel Scharreau, then received a German request to surrender the city of Rotterdam or face demolition by bombing.
I don't think he surrendered, guys. I don't think he surrendered.
However, this request was not signed. Scharreau argued he couldn't just give up the city for an unsigned request. Now, the mayor of Rotterdam, Peter Oud, he said that the fate of the country was more important than the fate of Rotterdam. However, if the fate of the country was already sealed, the city of Rotterdam needed to be spared. Dutch Supreme Commander, Generaal Winkelman, he agreed with Scharreau. So therefore they asked for a new signed request and also to postpone the ultimatum.
It's crazy how formal and stuff like war can be. They're like, no, we want a new signed request. Like, it's just crazy to me. Like, it just seems like war. Like, they would just blow people up, shoot people. They're just like, no, we need a new signed document. This one's not official. Like, they're following the rules, but there's war. Like, that's confusing to me. But okay.
A new signed request.
Signed
also
request.
to postpone the ultimatum. But by that time, German bombing planes were already on their way. Flares should have been fired in order to cancel the bombing. But because of miscommunication, these flares were not fired. And so, the historical city center of Rotterdam was bombed flat.
Oh, wow. That's what it looked like before that? That's crazy. Yeah, because, I mean, you got all these old, Haarlem and Amsterdam and Utrecht and all these old places, Maastricht, which is in that area, obviously, in the south, but still, like, old architecture. It's crazy. It's just all lost. It's all gone.
Historical
Goes from that
city center
to this.
Rotterdam was bombed flat, and 800 Dutch civilians died in this. Now, one place the Germans did not manage to take was in the north of the Netherlands at the Afsluitdijk. There, the Dutch garrison managed to fend off several German attacks. And when, on the 15th of May, the news of the conditional Dutch surrender reached them, these Dutch soldiers were in shock and awe. When the Dutch commander met the German commander to surrender himself, he said to the commander, "Understand, the only reason for laying down my arms is because of orders of high command, not because of any strategic circumstances. You are still outside my position and remain to do so for many days to come." On the 15th of May 1940, the Dutch High Command had signed the unconditional surrender to Germany. The Queen and the Dutch government had fled to England, but for the Dutch civilians, the occupation had begun. Now, there's much more to say about the Battle of the Netherlands, and if you have some additional information you want to share, feel free to leave it in a comment down below.
Do that.
I'm thinking of shooting separate episodes about the separate battles that have been fought during the German invasion of the Netherlands.
So, we're going to check out that MEI 1940 they keep putting up there. What is this movie about? I need to watch this, actually. Okay, so fine bombardment 14 MEI 1940. So is it parts of it are on YouTube. Looks like just clips. I don't know how to speak proper Dutch yet. I am learning though. I need to do another Dutch lesson actually. But anyways, that was the German invasion of the Netherlands in May 1940. And you guys have a super fun, awesome day. Links are in the description section down below for everything. And you guys have a super fun, awesome day. I will catch you in the next one. All right, take care.